Hi,
Good
good
morning,
morning, everybody.
everybody.
Morning.
Yep.
Morning. Um, Thought I'd go over a little bit. I hadn't been running around here trying to show anybody anything for a while, and that's because you never really want to lose 2 drives out of a RAID 5 device at one time and be 20 days behind on your backups. But, irrespective of all that fun, um, thought we'd discuss a little bit about browsers, the loopers on browsers, and the different things that happen, and just a little conceptual on these things in the first place, because we've got 3 different modes to generate our pages, which is the dynamic WebDev, the dynamic AWP, and static. And basically what they are is the dynamic WebDev and the dynamic AWP are almost the same. The difference is that the dynamic AWP is you have to handle your own context, and it's searchable by Google and them and things like this. And the static obviously is just static pages now. That was all explained by Pete and very thoroughly in his blog and different areas that he's talked about it. So we're not going to go over that twice or 3 times, however many that is. But the last thing about this is that if you're using an intranet site, in other words, you're using it within your business, one of the things that you're going to work on is the fact that you're going to be displaying data and trying to use the web as a business application. I've always, for years and years, says the web ain't ready for business. I think the web is now 80% there. It's still got issues. And that's where I've run into a significant issue here on our application up at American Litho, and have been working the last couple of weeks or so to find solutions to get around it. So let's give a little background here. We've got an application that has what they call forms and lots. The forms is the header and the lots are the children. And they want to be able to look at all of the forms with all of the lots for any job they do on a printing job at one time. All at one time. So what happens is you can certainly get to be a lot of looper rows together. So what we did, and Pete was instrumental in doing this, is we created a header child looper here. And this is that section here where you see this down to the bottom here where you see the no cutting of the form GID all the way up to the form plus descripted. The actual line is here in the middle. What that gives you is the ability to make it look, like you could fold, go back and forth, things like that, and do well. Okay. The problem with it is that you still got the old complete deal of showing everything. Whenever you use the dynamic WebDev, which is the AWP, or dynamic WebDev there, you're in essence on Ajax Call is trying to send bits of data back and forth and using the default Ajax setting in here. Let me show you that so we can kind of discuss that a little bit. That's the other thing I don't like about it. There we go, I had it. There we go. In the general section, you have classic Ajax and browser. If you're in the usual Ajax mode, every action you do or everything that you work with is then can possibly, based upon their JavaScript code, be sent back to the server, access, do whatever you need to do with. And what it does then is it shows you the difference. Now, that's the most automated way. It's the most simple way. You don't have to do much, and if you are not showing large data pieces at any one time and you're not getting huge listings there, then I would suggest you stick with that, okay, and not worry about it one way or another, okay? I would be honest with you, just leave it like that as an intranet, and for the most part, you're fine. If you're doing tables, not loopers, then you can use it. Just use a straight Ajax because it'll work fast, it'll work nicely, it'll do a lot of things for you. So as far as the basics and stuff, leave it alone. Now, the problem that you can run into is that when you get into large data sets and somebody needs to have the entire looper situation resolved, okay, you can certainly get into, and I'm going to show you what this screen looks like. You can certainly get into where you have more listed on the screen. As you can see, I'm scrolling through, and this is just one of them. It keeps on, and I can keep on going on and on and on. And the problem is now everything slows down. The whole process of adding one of these lines, the whole process of adding a whole, what we call a form, all of that will slow down to where the user experience is like, we can't use your site because it's too slow. And you're sitting there going, I have no idea how to make this thing faster because I've done everything I possibly can with the Ajax and everything else to make that run faster. So you go to the next step. And that's kind of where our discussion is going to start today. You've developed a dynamic WebDev application or a dynamic AWP, either one, and you've gotten to the point where they're wanting to see so much that the screen or the window's gotten very slow, and you can't convince them that they only really need to see 3 or 4 of these at a time, and they can scroll to the next one. And the whole process is getting to be a nightmare for you. There is a way to speed it up for the majority of them, and that's where you go into the classic mode. The classic mode here is what this current screen is currently working on. What that does is it stops all of the automated Ajax calls. And what that means is you have to code all your own Ajax calls, is what happens. So I don't think it's particularly a hard thing to do. Actually, it was not very difficult at all. What we use is array values, and we use the classes, obviously, to store the array values. So even at that step, it was not that difficult. And we're going to go through that here in just a second, how I did that. But by going to Classic, you can increase the speed of your display quite a bit. Now, it becomes negligible if you're not showing that much. If you're not showing a whole lot of data, if you're only showing a few bits, or you could probably show somewhere around 300 lines, 200 to 300 lines, and it'll be reactive. If you're doing the type of screen that we're doing here, which is a break screen, I would say that you don't want to show more than 100 lines, 100 records, 100, 150 records max before you start thinking about this. Because once you get past that limit, it takes longer to render the looper on any change, on any looper display TA init or looper display TA current, than what your users or everybody is willing to accept. So think about this. Let's see. It's kind of like a rule of thumb guideline here. If you're using a single row looper, no breaks, then you could probably go a couple of hundred lines on the screen before it really starts affecting people. If you're using the break headers and break footers that there is there to give this kind of view that you're currently seeing, then you don't want to really go much over 100 lines on the screen. Okay, 100 rows of the data, because I just don't think it's going to give the user experience that you want, and it's really right around the user experience issue. So what I did was, in one of the instances, is that since the browser itself is disconnected from the server and they really don't know much about each other, the only way to get data back and forth is tell it. So by switching to classic mode, well, there's no automated methodology for any of this information to go straight to the server. So what we did, or what I did, was under each one of the fields that's here, let me get one of the fields up, in the code, is I wrote a specific Ajax call. Okay? The Ajax call is, let me kind of get this out and I'll show you what it is. The Ajax call calls a procedure that updates my values. And what I'm sending it is that what it is, whether it's a form or form lot, I'm sending it what the ID of the record is. That's what that is, the ID of the record. I'm sending it the field name. That's the field name that I'm changing. And I'm sending it the value of the field that I entered. Okay? So in essence, all I did was say, hey, here you go, go here. This code here that was remarked out, and this code up here in the browser was all there to try to get around the Ajax jumping around. Because when you called an Ajax and you refreshed the screen by anything at all, that it would refresh the deal. So when we had it under Ajax mode, it would jump around a lot. Well, I didn't need any of that when I switched to the classic mode. I didn't need any of it all. So let's go to what's happening inside of this application here, or this process. This process here is going to go get my record. Okay, that's what it's going to go get. It goes, finds my record in the array seek, and then it's going to go through each one of the fields and assign the value based upon if I find it, and once I do it, then it's out. Okay? That's all it does. It says, go update the actual field inside my array where my data is, or go update, and you can use the same thing to go to the file, go update the actual file field that I have. Okay? My suggestion is, if you have to go down this part, is that you create a structure of the record, an array of the structures of the record, or something like that to hold your data before you actually save it to disk, because you don't want to save something to disk on every change of every field. Now, this is a common procedure here, is what it is. And the common procedure is on each and every one of these fields. So if I go to a different field and I hit and go to the code, then again, I'm sending it, and you see I'm calling the same thing, but I'm telling it I'm sending it lot description, so I'm updating everything. And what that does is now change the classic mode into a pseudo Ajax mode. But I'm controlling the Ajax instead. And since I'm controlling the Ajax instead, I'm not having to deal with the screen jumping around from a modification or something like that. Here's one of the deals. If you see, and I'll show exactly what happens. I'm in this screen here. As long as I tab around, everything is cool. I mean, it just goes, everything is just slick. The problem is that when I went from that field and I went to here, in the Ajax mode, that would cause a redisplay. Your cursor would be gone, and you wouldn't know where you're at. I'd probably be up here somewhere. If I was way down here changing things and clicked here, I would lose my place. It would go all the way back up the top on a screen refresh, and nothing would happen. And of course, the user experience in doing that would drive themselves nuts, and you get all kinds of calls, and everybody would be upset with you, and life would not be good, which life wasn't very good for a while. So anyway, what I'm trying to get to here is, and it doesn't matter whether this header's here or not, if you had just this many lines here, when I'm doing this under Ajax mode, clicking around different fields on the screen, that would cause a refresh, and in essence, you would lose where you're at. There's no way for you to find out where you're at. Okay? By changing it to classic mode, and that's where we're at right now, I am in pretty good shape. I can move anywhere on this, any field on this screen that I want to, and I don't have the issue of the refresh. And if I type something in and click down here, then it updates it, and everybody's just real happy. Now the difference is I'm actually at that time. I'm physically at that time updating the array with that value I typed in using that Ajax call. That's the difference. I'm using the Ajax call to do so. So now this makes it a usable, more friendlier system. Now, let's get into some of the problems that run into. As you can see here, this one's got several lines here. For those that got more toes and fingers, I'm going to hit this plus lot. And what this should do is just bring me a new line right down here at the bottom is what it should do. Now, as you can see, we're going to be talking about this for a second or two before it actually shows up. Now we're in a 4 or 5, probably going to get somewhere around 7 or 8 seconds before it actually shows up a line. Okay. The thing about this is what it's doing here is it is re-rendering the screen in order to show that extra line down there at the bottom is what it's doing. And as you can see, that kills your experience right there. As long as you're in a reasonably sized form, you're in good shape. Now I've got a wait situation here, and then you can keep on going. But bottom line, you're waiting for it to re-render everything on that screen just to show one frickin' line. And it's enough to drive you set. Now we've got it. There's my new line right there, 23. That's unacceptable. That's entirely unacceptable. And the only reason it's unacceptable is because it's got to build every bit of this stuff all the way down to the bottom before it gives me my new line. That's just insane. And the only reason it's doing that is because it instead of actually doing something simple, it has to re-render the page under classic mode or Ajax mode. Now, here's the processes I went down. I went down using Looper insert line, won't work. A Looper modify line, won't work. All of these items, none of those would allow you to work using Classic or Ajax in conjunction with browser stuff. It would not work. It would give you errors or just flat wouldn't work at all. So we still got an issue with speed, even though that once it's created, we're in good shape. But if somebody has to add lots or something like that, go get a cup of coffee before it's finished, and that's nightmarish. You can't do that. So what I've been doing now is I've been now working on and have got somewhat finished a new version that is switched this browser to what they call browser mode. Now, browser mode is quite a bit more advanced. You have to handle everything. It is basically you're telling it, I don't want you to do anything. This is still a dynamic AWP or dynamic WebDev page. It is a dynamic WebDev page. It gets generated at the time, so I don't have to worry about a lot of the stuff. I can still use some screen to source for the upper areas, things like this. But when it comes to this particular control or this particular looper in browser mode, that means it's saying, I'm going to do it, but you're going to have to do all the work. Okay? And in doing so, what now is I get as much speed out of it as what I can muster from straight browser code. Now, let's kind of go over a few of these pieces here and take a look at some of the code that has to be written to do this. So, right now, everything is based upon browser methods. And I'm going to go into the init looper code here. Actually, what am I doing here? Let me do this. Let me be smart. I can move this to another screen. Come on. Quit arguing with me. Oh. This is why you use the huge screens. No, don't do that. Thank you. Where you up there? Come on. Why don't you come with me? Because I ain't doing it right, that's why. Get her out of the way. Okay, now I got him out of the way. Okay, so in here, what I've done is that I've sent it an argument which is saying this is the job number that I'm working with. That's right. We're not afraid to write code. That's right. You know, there are times, you know, everybody be writing in assembler if we still got paid by the line. Anyway, what I've done here is I've got an init looper where I send the actual job number to it, and I have redefined the field definitions of everything in that looper. That's what you're seeing here is all the fields in that looper. Now, the thing I see with this is I would love to see, because I don't particularly see any reason why not, unless it's not supported. I would love to see you be able to do a structure in here. You're not able to do a structure in the browser. So it is all raw fields. Once those fields are done, what I'm doing here is I'm doing a loop. I am setting up that I'm bringing back a string called record, and I'm doing a fetch array. I'm getting the data. Basically, I'm getting a record of the data, and then I'm doing an extract string all the way down until I'm done, and then I can do the looper add line, which basically then puts it all in there, and then I add one to the index for the next line. Now, to go through this, you know, that's fairly straightforward. I'm looping and doing until, and then I'm breaking out whenever the one primary key value is blank. That's saying, okay, I'm done. I ain't got no more records. So let's take a look at fetch array data, which is this would be the same thing as what you would be doing elsewhere. Now this is a server procedure using Ajax mode, and what it does is it says, okay, from whatever index you sent me, whatever value you sent me, now this could be a record ID if you want to. Whatever record ID you want, then go get me out of the array that value. And what I'm doing here is I'm putting a tilde in between each field value, because that is one that very seldom anybody would ever use a tilde inside the a record field anyway. I don't allow it. So this allows me to create a string back returning all of the entire record that I have there in that string with tildes in between each field. That gives me the ability then to now line it, and we do the looper add line, and it creates the looper. Now you've got your looper on the screen. Everybody's real happy. You've got it listed there, and we'll show you how that works. Your problem is, okay, well, how do I do everything else? How do I update those values? Well, nothing changed. Basically, I'm doing the same thing. I didn't change anything from that classic mode. I'm still using this to update the values. I don't have to do anything else. Okay? I don't have to do anything else to do that except that. So I'm in pretty good shape there. So all of that is done. The question is how do you add or change, well, the change is fairly easy, but how do you add a lot or add a deal, and how do you do those kind of functionalities? Well, one of the things that we have here is I went and changed and did code like this is my add lot to the browser. Okay? And what I'm doing on the add lot is I'm finding the record. I'm doing a looper seek, which you could only do in browser mode, to the index, get that ID, and then I'm telling it to go ahead and add that lot. I'm telling it to Ajax execute and add that lot. The add lot, all it's doing is doing a call to my class code to add however many lots I need to do and then come back. That's all it's doing. And when it comes back, then I now have this. The second thing I got to do is I may have added lot to my database. I've added a record to my database or added a record to the array. I now got to show it on the screen, don't I? That's what the Acd Looper does. The Acd Looper is add, change, and delete. I'm sending it what the index value I'm on. Okay, now this is where it gets a little tricky. I am on record 23. I'm on the 23rd record inside that screen. I'm sending 23. I'm sending that I'm going to add or insert. I'm going to send an insert. I'm going to insert 1, and this is the form that I'm inserting it to. Again, I go basically through the same situation. I lay out all the fields, and I tell it this is the index I want. Okay. Now, the difference here is, and this is one thing I still got to code around a little bit, I know which parent I'm on. And all this code is dealing with a parent-child relationship in a single looper. So I know which parent I'm on. I don't know which child I'm on. Okay? So the first time out of the hole, what I'm doing is say, well, let's just rebuild the parent. Just rebuild the whole parent. So I'm starting from that index value, and I'm looping through. And if I find it, then I modify the records. Otherwise, I'm going to insert the records. And down at the bottom, I've got my switch statement that says, if I'm inserting, then I want to do an insert looper line. If I'm modifying, I'm doing a looper modify line. And if I'm adding a whole new line, I'm doing a looper add line. And a delete, I'm doing a looper delete. Okay? So now I've taken over every bit of those pieces of the normal looper controlling. I'm doing the adds, I'm doing the changes, I'm doing the modifies, I'm doing everything myself, all in browser code. This is all in browser code. And if you use these functions, it works out fairly nicely. I'm gonna go ahead and run it. And I can't. Let me see here. I got to change one thing first before it runs. In order to get to that page, I got to change one page. Now we can run it. Anybody confused or got questions so far while I run this?
Anybody? Wow, that's intense, man, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the part about it is, 9 months ago, I couldn't spell web programming. To be honest with you, 9-10 months ago. I mean, they got a lot of nice features to it, but I mean, sometimes, it's the user trying to get you to an area where the system's not really designed to be is probably the biggest reason. And I'm glad. One of the things that I used to fuss about all the time is getting in the way. Don't get in my way. Bottom line, help me wherever you can, but don't get in the way if I need to go around you. So far, I'm not saying that this is not a bad situation, but it's not the greatest. I got a bad record. Here's what I got. Anyway, what this is doing now is it's using that procedure there, and it's building the entire records. And this is the trace that comes up, tells me that I went through every one of them, because I got 73 records in there, as you can see. Okay, so I'll move that out of the way. Now I've got that same screen up, and everything's cool. So now let's add that same lot. Well, I'm going to do a couple things. So now I've rendered this same screen. We got the same screen on both of them now. So you can see I've got the same screen on both of them. Okay, all that data's there. The difference is one is browser mode, and the other one is classic mode. Is the two difference. I don't have anything built for Ajax mode, so we're not even going to mess with that. But let's go back over here. And what I'm going to do is delete that 23 that I had. Okay? And we'll see that it's going to agree to delete, and it's going to take approximately the same amount of time to get rid of it as it did create it. Okay? That's what it's going to do. It's going because again, it has to re-render that entire page again. Okay? That's what it does. Over here, on the other hand, if I go down here and delete one record, and I'm going to delete this one here so I don't delete the same 23, because there's 23 right there. You can see that 30 will be gone right now. 30 is gone. You're done right there. Now, the biggest slowdown I have right now is actually I'm running more trace calls. I got trace calls going everywhere, so it's actually rendering more trace calls than anything. But that's almost immediate. See, that's almost immediate. And it's, you know, we finally got rid of it on the other screen. So the difference is you do have to code a lot more in browser mode. There's no doubt you have to code a lot more in browser mode, and you need to have your head around Ajax to be able to do things. But now I've got the best of both worlds. You remember how long it took to add a lot. Sorry, I have a debug there. Hopefully you're done. Okay, see, there's my new lot right off the bat. I've got a new lot already. Let me get rid of that debug this time so that way it doesn't slow it down. We can see it work again. Where you at? Okay, just a second here, guys. I'll remove my breakpoints and then we'll see it happen. Okay. All right, so let's go to this one here. I'm going to add a lot. 1, 2, 3, and we're done. See, there's my new lot right there. On the other one, we took almost, 10 seconds or so before it showed up. This one takes about 2 seconds. I can deal with a 2 to 3 second turnaround time depending upon the size. If this was smaller, it'd even go faster. I can deal with a 1 to 3 second turnaround time. It's always been a kind of a rule. If you can get it within 1 to 3 seconds, you're in pretty good shape. But for a huge deal, this is what it is. Okay, that's what we're doing. That's where we're getting on this thing. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that there is not a lot of documentation on browser-based loopers. There's not a lot of documentation. In fact, there's zero documentation on it. It says it's there. And there's no examples either. But I don't think it is as daunting or as scary as you would think. The difference is that obviously you need to certainly look at what is happening with your Ajax calls and how you're dealing with Ajax calls. You also need to certainly deal with all of the Ajax yourself. You got to do it yourself. But I think that it is quite possible if you get into a situation on your code where you're looking to have it, be more responsive because they're speaking of being slow and this is getting important. Then this is an option that you need to consider. This is really an option you need to consider. I personally don't believe we need to deal with I personally don't think that we need to deal with loopers as much as what everybody thinks. If you can avoid loopers on large sets of data and use tables on WebDev, you're a lot better off. It's a lot faster. Okay, the rendering of them is. There's a couple little bugs or a couple little issues with it I don't like, but I'm sure that we'll get around there and have to deal with the resizing of them. But for the most part, but if you are using the loopers and doing things like this, I think browser, if you get into large sets of data, may be your savior before it's over with. One other thing is, and I will show you that code as well. In fact, we were just discussing it yesterday online, where we were discussing the gauge issues on saving data. What I did was I put a progress bar right here in the middle. That's what it is. It's just a progress bar right there in the middle. It's prog save is what it is. And when I have my save job button up here, all I'm doing is I'm telling it to activate that gauge, and every 10 milliseconds do something with it. In my save job code, now I'm calling an actual class, so I'm actually passing that value. I'm passing that progress bar to that, and inside there, as I loop through every one of the records to save them, I'm telling it for that display field, that equals the index value I've got there in multitask, and that's it. And so what happens on the screen when I do a save is you get the progress bar going across and nothing times out. Nothing times out at all. And it's as simple as it gets. That's all you needed to do, which in my opinion is pretty cool. But I'd like to put it in a pop-up window, but I haven't figured out how to close that and stuff. That's really kind of my problem there. But let me show you how that works there, and you can see there's not a deal about calling it back to actually get what it's supposed to do. And let's take a moment for it to fire up, and we'll get to that same one. That's my test version, test job on there. I make it ugly and then redo it, and then make it ugly and redo it. I trash the data and start over, stuff like that. Let's see. Of course, we're going clear across the country to get data. Now this is all used in the classic mode, but the browser does exactly the same thing. What'd you do? Okay, I done really screwed this page up. Fine.
Wow, they're really asking you to put a lot into a web app.
Oh man, yeah, I mean this is a lot in the web app. I am dead serious. There's a lot in this web app. This is serious. Serious amount of data that they show in this web app.
And they don't realize that it's not a desktop app, and they're expecting desktop app performance. So
you're correct, and you're absolutely correct. They're expecting desktop performance on a web app. And I'm sorry, this is still my test site. And I really got to fix this form.
If you do a web app that's like a tenth of what you're doing, it's
fine. Leave it at Ajax. Leave it as Ajax and go on. I'm serious. What we're talking about here is when you run into that wall. All of a sudden you're in there and you got, because let's be honest with each other, okay? The honesty about this situation is that we have a choice when we talk to our clients. Whether we work for the company or work for a client is irrelevant. We can't force them down a certain path. If we force them down a certain path, then the client will find somebody else that wants to go down their path. And you lose. Simple as that. You can't force a square peg in a round hole. You either got to make the round hole square so that it'll fit, or you got to trim the sides of that square peg until it does fit the round hole. So once you hit that wall, once you get to that piece, then you need to stop that. Chris, why in the world would anyone have parents and child records all on the browse list? It is directly related to how they do these forms, Chris. They want to know what press or what print press they're on, the run size, all of that information, and then these are the different areas on that huge page. Have you ever been in a printing area? You know, they run sheets of paper as big as your desk. Okay? Well, these are the sections of that printing area on that page that they're doing, and this is the actual page itself or the sheet itself. So they'll be running a 38-inch by 25-inch piece of run size paper is what it is, and they'll say, I want to print these 4 or 5 items on that one sheet of paper. Okay, and that's what they're doing. So in order to have a bird's eye view, in order to have a bird's eye view of everything that they need to do for that particular thing, they want to see it in one shot. The problem is that they may well do that for one job and have 100 of these things. Yes, requirement. It's a requirement, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like writing hand code, and you just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, yeah, rather than having.
Yeah. Well, what it is they really wanted to put their spreadsheets on the web. In essence, specialized spreadsheets on the web.
All chained together.
Yeah, all chained together, because what they'll do is they'll change something here and then scroll all the way down here and say, oh, this needs to be the same as B4 or B3 and this, and then say, okay, well, this needed to be A13 or whatever it is, you know, whatever you put in there, and this got to change over here to 23 trim size. We got to have 3 out on this. Oh, yeah, that was wrong, so let me change this to 2. And so what they're doing is they're jumping around trying to do the job, is what they're trying to do. So they're all over this thing. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Wouldn't they be happy? No, I guess not.
No. Again, it goes down to what we think they'd be happy with is not the case. What they would be happy with is that you got an individual there called a CSR, customer service rep, that his job is to make this entire print job. That's what this is, an entire print job, and have everything on this screen correct. And I mean, I've got some huge ones in here that have 100 of these with 50 or 60 of these in the middle of each one. I'm serious.
And they can manage that, huh?
They manage it. They actually manage it. But see, the deal is that when you refresh the Ajax, or you refresh the screen, that being all the way down here at the bottom and having to jump all the way back up the top drives them nuts. They want to kill you.
Man, I'm not even sure I would do a desktop app to do this. This is more like you said, an Excel spreadsheet, you know?
Yeah, this is like real work. But this is what they're doing. Okay?
I mean, they're doing it in a spreadsheet, not in a regular Windows app, are they?
Yeah, well, no, there's not a Windows app. See, originally started this using ASP code. Straight ASP code. They would do everything on the browser and then ship the whole thing to the DOM object. And then parse it all out and put it in the database. So what they do is they got lazy. Okay? The DOM object or the ASP is all browser-based. You don't have Ajax in the old ASP. We're not talking about ASP.NET. We're talking about ASP, the beginnings, way back in dirt 10 years ago. So everything was done on the screen, on the browser, and then, of course, if they lost it, they had to start over. If it crashed or something like that, they had to start over. But from there, they would use that. Well, that was their benchmark. Their benchmark was everything being done in the browser. Doesn't matter how much we do behind the scenes that has to be done in order to make all this data correct and make sure that everything works like it's supposed to. I mean, literally there's quite a bit of code in the background that does this work. Okay? And that all affects, database triggers, all that stuff there to make sure that everything's being calculated and done correctly. That is irrelevant. Their benchmark was that original screen, which is, okay, you got a spreadsheet, in essence, is what you did. So that's the other reason why I started looking at the browser. Okay, they originally started with the browser. Everything was being done in the browser. The only difference between what they were doing and what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to keep things updated as we go along. So that requires the Ajax. So can I move everything to the browser and do a lot like the original, in essence, the original ASP was doing? Well, other than browser versions, there's not been a whole lot difference. So when with the iPad, Chris, I want to kick you. Kick you right in the way, was.
Why don't we call up your customer and say, man, this would be a really cool iPad app.
Yeah, really? No. Okay, so let's do the save job. You remember we had the gauge activate. So when I click this, you can see right now, you can see it just churning up there, going through every one of them until it's done, and then it's saved and it's finished. And that gives a user experience. Okay? Oh. The same thing I'm going to do, that same little procedure gauge there, is what I'm going to do to load the one from the browser so they can see that it's loading through the browser is what it's doing.
Hey, what this reminds me of, and it's not, this is a ton more intense, is like SurveyMonkey. How you add more questions and more questions.
Yeah, this is a lot more intense than SurveyMonkey.
Yeah. But it's I see same idea. People want to either see it together, or they can say make these different pages.
Yeah.
I guess you could have done that is to just flip through the pages. But
yeah, the problem is again, you got some of these guys that what they want to be able to do is says, I want to jump down to form number 6, see what it says, then go back up to 3 and change some stuff, then go down to form number 20 and do this, then back up again. So they just don't want to jump around. They really don't want to do that. They don't want to open up each, and personally to me, I want to be honest with you, there was one thought in my head. There was really seriously one thought in my head to give them a straight table listing of all of the forms, which is the gray part you see there. And then when they click it, I would clone or push up a pop-up window, multiple ones if I needed to, of the lots for in there, so they could literally have 6 or 7 or 10 or 15 little pop-up windows for every one of the lots that they have open, so they could actually have open 6 or 7 of them at a time.
Well, you know what that's like. It's
but I haven't even tried yet.
If you physically saw paper, they'd have like a big scroll of paper that they're flipping up and down, whereas what you're thinking about is more like, okay, let's get some flashcards. Let's flip. Okay, I need that one, that one, that one.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. It just would they not have? Wouldn't it have been cool to have like your P2 whatever role, like in a column on the left side that they can pick from and say, expand this, change this. Then when you're done.
Well, see, this is the other problem in the original code, the collapse and stuff. See, I have a deal here to collapse all.
Yeah.
Okay. So that collapses all of that. And then I can expand this into one. Now, there was a couple of ways to do this in the system. They have a looper expand and a looper collapse, and if you know where you're at on it, it works out nicely. So that code got redone because of the classic mode, and now it works a lot cleaner. So I keep track of what's what, and basically what they do. Personally, I would have came in here with all of them down.
Yeah.
Okay, and all of them collapsed and just had the listing of all the headers in essence. But I mean, each person works differently. There's a lot of them that don't do anything, just go on.
Yeah, it seems like you see that it's like a cleaner look because some are big and some are small. This way you go, open this one up, let me change it, close it, go to the
Yeah.
next one,
Yeah.
and it saves it as
And
it
to me,
goes.
that's the way I'd work it, but they don't. There's a bunch of them. I've gone down there and watched them when I was in Chicago, and they just leave it all up there, and they're just, I mean, I'd have eye strain trying to follow them.
I guess you get used to it, huh? You get used to it. Oh man.
Ben Speed.
Like they said, Andy, you're a brave man.
Yeah, Ben. To answer your question, is just a speed issue. It started falling apart when it got to a certain size, and it's not that it failed. It just was the speed was just not there to keep them happy, and that's what happened. And that's the reason why I'm going down the browser mode now. I mean, we tried to retrain them to do it the way the decent decent way, but they just kept fighting it, and it ended up where basically you had almost a revolt down there on the floor. Is what we had been. The pop-ups would have been nice. I thought about that, but I think that the only way that you could do the pop-ups, Ben, which is not a bad idea, is if you could do more than one. In other words, something that I could spawn off 6 or 7 pop-ups, and I have not seen an area where I could use the same pop-up and open it up multiple times. Now, more than likely, I could probably do it with a page display dialog or something, but I think you got to remember it's more SDI, so I don't have the ability to. I haven't gone into thinking about whether or not I could actually clone the screen to another screen name and use it.
So can you do this with a touch screen, like with the Surface Pro or something? You can scroll with your finger going up and down.
Sure.
Because I can see them really liking that then,
Yeah, well, the problem is this is your data entry clerk. Okay, realistically, this is your data entry clerk. They get a sheet of paper, and I even got one of those. I'll show you what they get because I had one sent to me.
You want a camera?
No, I got it as a spreadsheet. So let me pop that down here, and you can see what they get. Okay, this is the job that they get. This is one, and it's not a very big one. This is Mary Kay is what it is. And you can see that each one of these items is basically the header. That's the header part of each one of those items. These are books. So in essence, they've got 56 different things that they're doing. That is the gray header part, and then they may have 10 or 20 of those things underneath each one of them in order to do this.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So this is what they get. They get this sitting over the side, and what they're doing is they're going through and getting all this information correct, and if they get down here to this, and it says, oh, this has got to be here, back and forth, and so they've got this here on one side, and they're trying to make this page match and do all of these pieces for every one of those line items. So it's stressful for them too, because they have to get it right. They have to have it right from the get-go. If they don't have it right from the get-go, then that huge roll of paper that's taller than you, Arnold, in essence has just been wasted. And when you're wasting $25,000 of paper in a roll, that's not good.
Are you building like cross-referencing type of business rules that check this against that, or is it all human?
No, this right now is I'd say 99% human. They got to know their stuff. There's a lot of stress in this stuff. Now we have another system. It's called Pace. This was one of the biggest pushes that we did is that I wrote the API to Pace. Now, when we shove it over to Pace, we got this deal here. It's called it's on the bindery page, but it says push to Pace. When you send it to Pace, then it goes through a lot of checks and balances and says this will or will not work, things like this, and changes can be made in binary based upon it. These guys are basically putting in what they think or what should be done to this to make it end result what the customer wants. Okay? The binary is the one that looks at it and goes, I ain't working. Or, okay, I can do this, but I need to switch these things around. And they got what they call jobs that they use in order to run the machines, and it comes up on little Android devices on the job, and that's what PACE interfaces to. Okay? And so I send all of this information to PACE. It creates what they call a job sheet, and they got all this stuff in there that goes out to the machines and says, okay, for this particular chunk of stuff coming through, this is what you're going to do to it.
Okay, so they're not having you build a lot of business rules per se in here. This is just like gather up all the information best you can, and then we'll go turn it out later.
Man, I got some in here, but it's not anywhere near what I would normally do for a business. Not anywhere close to what I would normally do for a business.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I'd lose my hair just like you if I was doing this.
Oh, well, luckily I didn't have any hair when I started. I'll tell you what, everybody, because I got things to get going here pretty quick. When I get it completely running, when I get to a point here that it's all running under browser mode, and I've got all the pieces and parts and puzzles put together, because it does do the three or four major things, and it'll do the saving already. The only thing that I haven't quite got into yet is, some of these buttons we got, the copy links. There's a few buttons in here that I don't have working in the browser mode yet. Once all those are done, I'll come back at this and show you how the whole thing works in browser mode, straightforward, and that should be sweet. It should be in pretty good shape.
I'm surprised they don't have more color coding stuff too. That makes.
Oh no! I don't want colors. Remember, I'm colorblind.
Oh yeah, that's true.
All right. Everybody's hunting for me now. It's 8:30.
Okay, man. Thank you so much
for
sharing.
Thanks for everybody being here. Appreciate it. Be good or be good at it. If you do have some questions on the browser mode, I will do the best I can with you. I can tell you what I've done, not necessarily instruction on what you've done or what you need to do, but I can at least tell you what I've done, and maybe that will help you move down that area and get a little further along.
Wow, crazy, but thank you so much.
All right, guys, be good or be good at it. We will talk to y'all later.
I'm stopping the recording now.